Well, we have another case which Peter is sort of an expert into, and that is that what's our situation? Well, he's got a weather report, which is, shall we say, a galactic weather report. That the weather systems which we are experiencing now show more and more evidence of a galactic process which is quite lawful, that the solar system is now migrated into an aspect of the galactic system of which we are a part, in which the weather, the galactic weather, becomes a little bit more dangerous for mankind. We are already experiencing in the United States this year the beginning of a very significant shift in weather patterns which pertain to galactic processes as opposed to simply solar processes. And these, we see this weather. It is becoming rather dangerous. Right? So therefore, we have a challenge before us of doing what Obama will not allow.
Right.
We have to go into galactic space through intervening from our base in solar space, which means that Obama is probably the worst traitor to the human race that ever existed, because he has done more to destroy our attention to space, where we have to go in order to defend ourselves on Earth by intervening in nearby space, to discover means which strain our imagination, but they are the means in which to defend ourselves against actually a homicidal potential in the weather now. That's where we are. So therefore, we do not simply defending ourselves on Earth. We also, in the meantime, have a mission which is inherent in our position as a solar system within the galaxy. We are now faced with challenges on Earth as weather challenges on Earth, which actually have galactic implications. We therefore realize, as many scientists realize, that we must go into nearby solar space with interventions whose intention includes establishing the ability to exert some control over the weather systems which threaten us now under these times. We have just this year has conspicuously entered into that kind of problem, which means that we've got to get through with this British nonsense immediately in order to go on with a larger challenge, which is not only building up our defenses on Earth, but going into the solar system for interventions in a longer term, which are intended to enable us to make discoveries there, which we cannot make otherwise, and also to build up systems of defense of humanity within the solar system. So we have now a new mission, a positive mission. So it's not merely stopping the evil that Obama represents, for example, in the United States. It's a matter of we have to get on with the business. Now you'll find that the Russians, with their proposal recently, have set the pace on this. We have to build up a space defense. And a space defense is not just a defense against other people on this planet. A space defense is the ability to deal. For example, we have this large object which passed in orbit between Earth and the Moon. Well, we had very little warning of that. We were not alert to it. Thank Obama. Obama is the guy who put Earth in danger. He's not liked by Earthlings.
Yes.
But then we have other things we know exist in nearby space around Earth, which are a potential threat to Earth, and we don't have any capability for even detecting some of these things in a timely way. And under Obama, we will never detect them. So therefore, if you want to save the human species, let alone save good life on Earth, you have to get rid of Obama. Put him in a cage someplace where he can be, people can examine him and trying to find out what planet he comes from or what galaxy he dropped in by. But the point is, we have a mission now, and the mission is a space-based mission, We cannot sit on Earth and look at objects up there, particularly objects we can't see presently, and defend people on Earth. So therefore, we have to get out there with experimental devices and means. We have to devise new methods of controlling some of these things, which we can do. Exactly what they are, we don't know, but we know we can do it. We're going to have to build bases on Mars. One of our first targets beyond the moon is a base on Mars. Now, it's not to put up cottage industries up there. The idea of Mars is the one planet. Venus is terrible. She always was bad, but she really is terrible now. Because we need a base of operations in which human beings can, under certain kinds of protection, can perform functions which are needed, which pertain to the solar system in a larger base. It's easier to get in and out of Mars than it is out of Earth, things like that. And it is a base for setting up automatic stations, all kinds of things that we need badly in order to deal with the threats. That's what the Russians have proposed. What the Russians have done is adopted what I initiated as became known as SDI, as a strategic defense initiative. The Russians have extended that, which was not contrary to our intentions at all, have extended that by proposing that we have a strategic defense for Earth within the solar system, and which means it would be a defense on Earth, but it also is at the same time a defense of bad rocks which want to drop in on an untimely fashion on us or things like that. Right? So the defense of Earth, the defense of human life on Earth, now requires that direction, which supplements the idea of defense as we had it with the SDI. And we are also in a situation in which the SDI had been the last chance to stop the danger of thermonuclear war. The last chance. Because the capability of weapon systems now is such that there is no effective defense of that type anymore. It's gone. And you can see that in the weapon systems that are being used now. Many of them are collateral. But we can no longer have major wars on planet Earth. We have to shift our attention away from major wars as an expected thing to something which stops the possibility of major wars, absolutely, politically. And that's what the Russians have proposed. And we should accept it. I think many of our American military specialists would accept that. That's true. China and others would all accept that. We have to think about the security of Earth, but we don't want wars on Earth. What we have to do is think about the security of Earth, both from problems of the type we have here, like weather problems, all these kinds of things. But we have to think about the defense of Earth itself from problems in nearby space. And we have to think also in terms of better insight into what's going on within the galaxy in general, our galaxy, of which we are merely a neighborhood within our solar system.
I think the weather issue, it comes right back to how the oligarchical principle works. Because like right now we just had this series of large storms that just struck from Texas up through the Ohio River Valley, where we had large tornadoes and things like that. Very violent storm, but it's part of what's called the split jet stream, where there's a jet stream coming down from Alaska and Canada down into the northern United States, and another one that's coming up through like Mexico, Baja, up through Texas, which collided to make this big storm system. It's blamed on the fact that there's La Nina right now in the Pacific Ocean. Now, we were able to forecast the storms ahead by maybe 3-4 days because we knew what the situation was with this La Nina and we could see the jet streams. But anything beyond that is, at this point, speculation because we have no ability to forecast what's going to happen with the larger weather systems like La Nina or some of the larger like pressure systems that tend to change on annual bases around the planet because nobody knows what causes them. So the forecasting ability for long-term forecasting of climate on the Earth is limited to maybe about a half a month to a month because people are stuck with what's happened to their minds through the oligarchical system. So right now, everybody's trying to predict all this stuff based on global warming, that people are warming up the Earth, and therefore we're having this terrible weather. Everything that happens is blamed on, the ocean temperatures are getting hotter because of man's activity. Instead of, which is a totally kinetic and also very boring analysis, in reality, all these processes, it's been known since at least the 60s and 70s that these processes are driven by mainly the sun, but also other things that happen in the solar system, like cosmic ray activity getting into the atmosphere. It's been known that these long-term cycles are somehow related to these larger systems. But the way the oligarchical principle works is that it destroys your ability to think about science because it enforces this sense perception view of the universe, that anything that happens has to have a cause that's within the bounds of sense perception. Anything that happens has to have another cause that's linked to it by a series of kinetic interactions, which today it's expressed by the whole second law of thermodynamics phenomena, which is based on you have particles that are zooming around in empty space, ricocheting off each other, and over a long period of time, the whole thing just turns into a big blah and gets gets very boring, and the whole system just runs down into nothing. When a real concept was buried by the second law of thermodynamics and the whole atomic theory that came out of it, what was buried by that is a concept of the wave function, which is that you have large systems that act as systems, and not as kinetic interactions, but that you change the system and the whole system changes. And so then you see singular sensible changes, but those singular changes are changed because the whole system is changing. It's not because one thing is hitting something else, or there's some invisible particle that's shooting from one to the other, but the entire system as a whole is changing. So I think the one thing that needs to be emphasized with the oligarchical principle is that the way it acts is to destroy creativity by getting people to reflexively think in terms of kinetics, and I think it screws up the ability to discuss strategy, right? Because we know that the British Empire is planning for a thermonuclear war right now because that's the species characteristic of the British Empire in this type of situation. You don't have to go and do some kind of a deductive thing and show all the connectos in order to put it together. We have the evidence, but the real evidence is that that's the characteristic of the British Empire. It's a system. It's not a kinetic interaction. Yeah, I think it's worth emphasizing too that the alternative right now is very terrible because the oligarchical system is going to die no matter what. They could take us with them. The alternative to that is it's actually a very beautiful concept that we should do what we started and spread out in the solar system. Right now, several astronauts are getting the Congressional Gold Medal. The original Apollo 11 astronauts and John Glenn, which they deserve. Apparently they're the first astronauts to ever get the Congressional Gold Medal, which is it's an important message to send. But the alternative to the oligarchy is learning to run the system that we inhabit and to make it better and better and better and better, and to begin controlling weather systems, which might mean that we have to have bases on Mars and the Moon in order to control the weather systems on the Earth, because it's one large system. But I just think it's important to emphasize that we've been stuck with the oligarchical principle since way back before the Peloponnesian War, like Lynn's saying. This is endgame for them. This is it. They're going to go they're going to go no matter what. The question is, are we going to kick them out, or are we going to let them just take us with them?